A harsh thud echoed as Noah Sterling's suitcase was shoved down the narrow aisle. The first-class cabin, once as quiet as a luxurious gallery, jolted. Wine glasses trembled on their tables, and every passenger's eyes turned toward the black man in a simple suit, his thin silver frames catching the cold LED light. He had just been ordered to leave seat 2A, the seat he had paid $4,750 for on a flight from New York to San Francisco. "You need to move to economy," Maya Turner, the chief flight attendant, said flatly, her voice cold as steel. She showed no hesitation. Her eyes were like blades, slicing through any attempt at defense. "This seat belongs to a preferred customer." The cabin froze. The man in the modest suit lifted his head slightly. Noah did not argue. He did not shout. But the veins stood out white against his clenched fingers, pressed hard on his knees. His answer came in a low, restrained voice. "Valid ticket, valid seat. Valid. I'm sitting exactly where I belong." A spark of whispers ignited, flaring like dry straw catching fire. "Who's wrong? Who's right?" passengers murmured. A few raised their phones, their lenses trembling with both curiosity and unease. The air grew heavy, as if a single spark could explode into a scandal. Across from Noah sat a white man, shoulders straight, adjusting the Rolex gleaming under the cabin light. Gregory Shaw, 50,005, in a navy-tailored suit that fit the body of a man accustomed to luxury travel. He smirked, a smile carved with arrogance. "Seat 2A is mine. I've sat here dozens of times. You must be mistaken." One arrogant remark, yet instantly the cabin split into two sides, one drenched in privilege, so confident it dismissed the law. The other a silence sharp as a blade, more dangerous than any raised voice. Who truly held the power? Noah leaned back slightly, his voice lowering like current preparing to strike. "Mr. Shaw, according to Section 17 of the Federal Contract of Carriage, ownership of a seat is determined by a paid electronic ticket, not personal habit. Would you like me to read my ticket number aloud for the entire cabin?" His words cut through the air like a sword. Maya Turner faltered for a moment, but years of experience sharpened her tone again. "Mr. Sterling, I'm asking you to cooperate. If not, we will have to call aviation security." The phrase "call security" rang in passengers' ears like a familiar bell. How many times had they seen images of black passengers dragged from their seats? And now, that same tragedy was unfolding before their eyes. Noah inhaled deeply, his heart pounding like a war drum. In his mind, numbers flashed like a balance sheet. $500 million, the value of the deal waiting for him in San Francisco. A single misstep could destroy it all. But silence would mean surrender. A thin, cold smile appeared on his lips. "Ms. Turner, are you certain you want your name in this report? You are confronting a fully paid passenger with an Amex Black card, and you are about to violate Section 240 of the Department of Transportation's Denied Boarding Compensation Regulation." This time, Maya's lips trembled. Never before had a passenger fought back with the language of law and finance. Gregory burst out laughing, trying to twist the tension into a joke. "Look at him! A $500 suit with a torn shoulder, quoting laws like a fake lawyer. Apex Air has spoiled me for years. He's just putting on a show. A few joined his laughter, but several eyes shifted, wavering, glancing toward Noah. Heavy footsteps echoed. 2 security officers appeared, their voices sharp. "Mr. Sterling, please vacate your seat. If not, we will enforce flight safety regulations." At that moment, Noah's stomach tightened, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. The cabin's harsh white light fell across his face, illuminating eyes deep and unwavering with resolve. He rose slowly, offering no resistance. Outwardly, it looked like defeat. But in his mind, another plan had already begun. One call, one name. Noah glanced at Gregory, his voice lowered just enough for his opponent to hear. "Be careful. The market never forgives deceit." The first-class cabin held its breath. Phones stayed raised, flashing, recording. Passengers waited for the outcome. But they did not know. The man being escorted out was not the weaker one. Because Noah Sterling was not just a passenger, he was the CEO of Sterling Nexus Group, a corporation worth $18.9 billion. And with a single call, the entire airline would tremble. Under the blinding light of the airport corridor, as 2 security officers escorted Noah Sterling, many passengers thought he had lost. But the truth was far different. In Noah's mind, memories of Detroit long ago were rising, every scar of childhood burning into a quiet flame. Noah was born in 1978, in a neighborhood where streetlights went dark earlier than the wail of police sirens. The cramped 2-bedroom apartment where he and his mother, Ruth Sterling, lived always carried the damp smell of rusted pipes and the sound of rats scurrying across the ceiling. Ruth, a night shift nurse, bore dark circles under her eyes, but her voice was always gentle. Every morning, when Noah awoke, a small note waited on the kitchen table, scrawled in trembling handwriting. "Son, study as if you are the last light in this house." Those hurried words, written during her short breaks, became his lifelong compass. In elementary school, when the teacher asked about dreams, hands shot up. Police officer, doctor, athlete. When it was Noah's turn, in his worn-out shirt, he answered firmly without a tremor. "I want to own a bank." The class burst into laughter. A black boy in ragged clothes, daring to dream of power and money. But in his eyes, there was not the slightest doubt. At 14, Noah worked washing windows for a convenience store. The winter wind cut into his skin, his hands numb, but tucked in his coat pocket was always a math book. Each time he wiped the frost from the glass, he whispered differential formulas to himself. "Knowledge is the first stock you must buy." That vow became his creed. A full scholarship carried him to MIT. But there he found not only knowledge, but suspicion. On his first day, a white student nudged his friend and said loudly, "Maybe he's in the wrong class." Noah only smiled and sat down. 4 months later, when the final grades were posted, it was Noah who stood at the top. That smile was no longer silent endurance. It was a razor cutting prejudice apart. After graduation, Noah entered a small investment fund, earning a 6-figure salary most would envy. But 3 years later, he sighed. As long as the keys remain in someone else's hand, I am still only a guest. He left that dream salary, returned to the old apartment with his mother, and started from zero with an outdated laptop and his first contract worth $25,000. That was the beginning of Sterling Nexus Group. From real estate data analytics, the company expanded into artificial intelligence for finance. 10 years later, Sterling Nexus had grown into a multinational conglomerate worth tens of billions. But Noah never forgot his mother's words. Power doesn't lie in ownership, but in how you change the way others are treated. For that reason, he created a hiring policy where 70% of employees came from underprivileged neighborhoods. The media called him the Black Giant of Wall Street, but in his heart, the past still throbbed like scars. He remembered being trailed by supermarket security just because of his skin color. He remembered the moment his credit card application was denied despite a perfect score, dismissed as a potential risk. Once, in the early days of his startup, he walked into a luxury hotel for a meeting. A guard stopped him. The VIP meeting rooms on the 15th floor are not for outsiders. Noah handed over his room key and smiled coldly. Good, because today I paid for the entire 15th floor. That was when he realized people did not doubt his ability, they doubted his presence. And Noah swore to turn every insult into a lever of power. Now, at 45, Noah was no longer the boy washing windows in the snow. He was the man who had just sat in seat 2A, carrying a $500 million deal in his hands. But when Maya Turner and Gregory Shaw stood there denying his valid seat, the memories of Detroit came back like a storm. They were not just blocking him from a chair, they were repeating the history he had fought so hard to overcome. And this time, history would not repeat itself in slants. Noah walked under the harsh glare of the airport lights. Every step echoed like the sound of wiping frost from glass long ago. Passengers looked on, believing he had been defeated. But deep inside, a fire blazed. He knew, with one phone call, one name, the entire airline would tremble. Dawn had not yet washed away the night from New York, and the glass towers still carried a faint shade of purple. In a 60th floor penthouse, everything moved like a well-tuned orchestra. The wall clock ticking rhythmically, the coffee machine hissing softly, and every motion of Noah Sterling precise as the numbers he commanded. On the long walnut table, his laptop displayed a file. Acquisition deal, valuation $500,000. The screen's glow lit his face, lips pressed tight, fingers tapping a steady rhythm on the table. That rhythm was not anxiety, but the ritual he followed whenever total focus was required. Beside him, a steaming cup of Ethiopian coffee sat untouched. Instead, his gaze lingered on a photo. His mother, Ruth, smiling gently with her hand resting on young Noah's shoulder. His voice dropped to a quiet vow. Today, Mom, $500 million. But above all, your faith in me. His phone buzzed. The name on the screen, Lena Park, 32, his executive assistant and the right hand in every critical deal. Her voice rang sharp, without flaw. The schedule is set. The San Francisco team is waiting to sign. The lawyers reviewed every clause. No gaps. Noah nodded, his tone steady and firm. Good. Ensure clause 12.4 on minority stake control stays intact. That's the final key. The call ended. He put on his charcoal coat and stepped into the elevator. The cold steel walls reflected the image of a man who looked unassuming, yet whose decisions could shift billions. Downstairs, a black Mercedes S-Class idled at the curb. As the car pulled away, the first rays of sunlight slid across the misted glass towers, reflected in the window beside him. Noah opened his leather case and pulled out a small notebook. Not reports, not contracts, but a personal journal. Inside were no dry numbers, only words. Every financial decision carries a story. Understand the story, and you understand the people. Perhaps that was why the financial world called him the storyteller of numbers. To Noah, a balance sheet was never just profit and loss. It was the dream of a young founder, the sweat of laborers, the hope of families. At JFK, the crowd surged beneath fluorescent lights. Noah walked calmly, dressed in a modest suit and unbranded leather shoes. No one knew this man controlled nearly $19 billion in assets. At the first class check, in desk, the agent bowed slightly. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling. Seat 2A is ready. Here is your ticket." He accepted it with a nod, no show of pride. Through security, an officer's eyes lingered a little too long. It was not the first time Noah had been scrutinized, despite holding an American passport and a first-class ticket. He was used to it. Today he kept silent, conserving all his energy for San Francisco. In the first-class lounge, he opened his laptop and joined a video call. Smiling faces filled the screen. "Mr. Sterling, we compared valuations across 3 auditing firms. The numbers are solid. Only your signature remains." Noah gave a faint smile, his voice resonant. "Remember, when we sign, this isn't just a contract. This is a declaration. Sterling Nexus does not simply exist. We lead." A chime rang through the lounge. "Apex Air Flight 762 to San Francisco is now boarding." He closed the laptop, drew a deep breath, and straightened his shoulders. A man preparing for the defining moment of his life. But fate often hides in the smallest detail. At the next boarding gate, Gregory Shaw laughed loudly with the staff. He was used to reverent glances, accustomed to the words "preferred guest," as if they were keys to every door. In a few minutes, he would ignite a scandal that would shake all of Apex Air. A beep sounded as Noah's boarding pass scanned. The green light blinked. He walked through with quiet confidence. First class glowed warmly under soft light. Champagne already poured, linens spotless, leather seats cradling each passenger. Noah placed his suitcase overhead, sat in seat 2A, buckled his belt, and opened his laptop to review the final clause. Everything seemed like an ordinary flight, serene, until a voice cut through, sharp as a blade. "Excuse me, but you're in my seat." Noah looked up. Before him stood Gregory Shaw, clad in a navy suit, blazing red tie, and polished Italian shoes gleaming like mirrors. His eyes swept over Noah with disdain, as though unable to accept a black man occupying a seat he believed belonged to him. Noah's expression did not shift. His voice was low and firm. "This is my ticket. Seat 2A. You can check." Gregory scoffed, his laughter rolling across the cabin. "I've flown this route dozens of times. This is always my seat. Clearly there's been a mistake. You should move." A ripple of whispers spread. A young couple murmured, "Oh God, here we go again." A businessman quietly raised his phone to record. Noah placed his boarding pass firmly on the table before Gregory. The number was clear. Seat 2A. Every syllable struck like a hammer. There is no mistake. The contract of carriage binds it. The ticket was paid. This seat is mine. Tension stretched like a drawn bowstring. Then another figure approached. Maya Turner, her face stern, her tone professional, but her eyes cold. "Is there a problem here, gentlemen?" Gregory rushed to assert himself. "This man is in my seat. I booked it." Maya glanced quickly at Noah's boarding pass. Her brows furrowed slightly, but instead of confirming his right, her voice fell cold. "Mr. Sterling, for the smooth operation of this flight, perhaps you should consider moving to economy to avoid disruption." A surge of fury rose. Veins pulsed at Noah's temple. The hum of the engines mingled with the restrained breaths of passengers. He inhaled deeply, his voice calm yet hard as steel. "Ms. Turner, my ticket is for first class. I will remain in the seat I paid for. Your job is to uphold regulations, not to indulge personal preferences." First class plunged into silence. Gregory's mocking laugh rang out, harsh and grating. But other eyes shifted uneasily, troubled. An elderly woman whispered to her seatmate, "Why don't they look at the ticket instead of the color of his skin?" Maya pressed her lips tight, but subtly signaled to a colleague, "If he doesn't move, call security." Noah heard every word. His heart clenched. He knew what was about to unfold. And this time, he vowed, if they wanted to repeat history, the price they would pay would be more devastating than ever before. The PA crackled, Maya Turner's voice cold. "Security assistance requested at seat 2A. The sound cut through the cabin like an alarm. Passengers jolted. Phones rose in unison. Tiny lenses that could topple an airline. Noah Sterling sat upright, hands clasped, his gaze unreadable, his heart pounding beneath his ribs, though his face remained eerily composed. Because sometimes silence is a steel wall stronger than any defense. The cabin door burst open. 2 security officers strode in, boots thudding, a dry echo. The lead, Ethan Morales, 38, tall and broad-shouldered, his voice firm. "Mr. Sterling, we have instructions to ask you to leave your seat immediately." Noah did not move, his voice low, each word a blade carving the air. "Morales, are you aware I hold a valid ticket for this seat? Do you understand that if you touch me, you will be violating Section 41,612 of the Federal Aviation Act, which prohibits discriminatory conduct in carriage?" Ethan faltered for a moment, but Maya cut in sharply. "He is disturbing the flight. For safety, remove him." Gregory Shaw folded his arms, leaning back, a smug grin spreading, loud enough for the cabin to hear. "Do it. Drag him out. People like him don't belong in first class." A few scattered laughs followed. Then a voice rose from row 3. "Wait, I can see his ticket. Seat 2A. I filmed it." All eyes snapped to her. She raised her phone, the camera zooming in on the boarding pass on Noah's tray. Maya reached to block the lens. Too late. The image was already captured. Noah lifted his head, stared straight into the camera, his eyes burning with resolve. He rose slowly, as if he controlled the tempo, not the officers, his voice resonant enough to fill the cabin. "Miss Turner, remember this. Every decision you make today will appear in legal records, and the law never sides with prejudice." Ethan laid a hand on Noah's elbow. His tone softened, almost apologetic. "Sir, I'm sorry, but we must do our duty." Murmurs swelled. An older man in 1A shook his head and whispered, "Shameful 21st century, and this still happens." Noah stepped away from seat 2A. The cabin light cast across his face, not as surrender, but as dangerous restraint, each step driving a nail of humiliation into the hearts of those witnessing. And before he left the cabin, he turned, his voice sharp, each word falling like a hammer. "Markets despise deceit, Mr. Shaw. Remember that." Gregory laughed, but the surrounding looks were no longer in his favor. His arrogance laid bare. The door slammed. The airport corridor was blinding white. Noah was led into a security room, an icy metal chair waiting. Ethan avoided his eyes, shoulders tight. A mid-level manager burst in, stammering, "Mr. Sterling, please cooperate. We just want the flight to depart on time." Noah folded his arms against the chair, his voice low, but carrying the authority of a CEO who had faced boards of directors. "You're correct about departure times, but you forgot one thing: legality. I am not the problem. The problem is the biased system you uphold. And trust me, I know how to deal with systems." The air thickened. Every staffer felt they faced not merely a passenger, but a force. Noah took out his phone, his fingers moving slowly, deliberately visible to all. He dialed a single number, pressed the phone to his ear, his voice clear and ringing through the room. "Thomas Green, this is Noah Sterling. We have an urgent situation. Apex Air has just violated Section 41712 in front of dozens of witnesses. I want the entire board notified within 5 minutes." The room went still. That name, Thomas Green, 72, Apex Air's largest shareholder, landed like a bomb. The mid-level staff paled, everyone knowing that name could pivot the entire board with one call. Noah set the phone down, his gaze cold as tempered steel. "You pushed me out of seat 2A, but in a few minutes this whole airline will pay the price." The security room was silent. The only sounds were the ticking of the clock and the tight, constricted breaths of the staff inside. Noah Sterling's phone call had torn through the thin veil of authority like a blade. On the other end, a gravelly voice spoke slowly, sharp as a razor. "Noah, don't worry. I'll handle it. You're still at JFK, right?" Noah answered curtly, "Yes. And I want them to know it was you who called." He ended the call. From that moment, the balance of power in the room shifted completely. No one dared meet Noah's eyes. The mid-level manager swallowed hard, sweat breaking across his forehead. 10 minutes later, the door swung open. A tall, lean man with neatly combed salt and pepper hair in a grey suit stepped in, every stride pressing down on the room's air. It was Victor Hale, 50 years old, Regional Director, the man who commanded Apex Air's entire East Coast operation. He extended his hand, his voice measured, but his gaze cutting sharp. Sterling, my deepest apologies. I came under direct orders from Mr. Green. Noah clasped his hand, a faint smile flickering, his eyes unwavering. Mr. Hale, I don't need apologies. I need action. And that action must happen here and now. Victor snapped toward the mid-level manager and Ethan Morales. His voice cracked like a whip. Give me the incident report. Papers trembling were handed to him. He scanned them quickly, then flung them onto the table. No legal basis, no safety violation. This is blatant prejudice. He drew a deep breath, then turned back to Noah. Mr. Sterling, please return to first class. I will personally escort you. Noah rose, walking with deliberate, steady steps, each one pounding like a drumbeat, the silent rhythm of triumph. When the cabin door opened, warm golden light spilled out, casting across his face, and every passenger lifted their heads. At his side was Victor Hale, a living emblem of Apex Air's internal authority. Phones instantly swung toward them. Gregory Shaw, lounging smugly in seat 2A, froze. His face drained pale, then flushed crimson. He barked, "What is this? That's my seat!" Victor advanced, his voice cold as steel. "Mr. Shaw, your ticket is for tomorrow's flight. Mr. Sterling is the rightful passenger. It is you who caused a severe disruption to this airline." The cabin erupted in shocked murmurs. A woman gasped aloud. "My God, he doesn't even have a ticket for today." Gregory stammered, his face unraveling. "Impossible. I'm a preferred guest. Apex always lets me sit here." His words were cut off by Noah, his tone slicing through the air, carrying across the cabin. "In business, we call that fabrication, and fabrication inevitably leads to collapse." Passengers drew sharp breaths. A few clapped hesitantly, then more joined, the applause spreading like fire. The sound was not just for Noah, but for the truth revealed. Victor's expression hardened as he commanded, "Chief Flight Attendant Maya Turner, along with Meredith Hayes and Jason Hill, leave the cabin immediately. You are suspended from duty as of this moment." Maya's face blanched, her lips trembling. "But we only followed procedure." "What procedure allows you to expel a valid passenger based on personal prejudice?" Victor's words sliced like a blade. "Apex Air has no such procedure. Out!" The cabin fell silent. Maya bowed her head, her shoes clicking against the floor like a funeral toll. Jason stared down at the ground. Meredith burst into tears. In the eyes of the passengers, those who had barked orders moments ago were now disgraced. Noah returned to seat 2A. He sat down, buckled his belt, and opened his laptop. The act was simple, yet to all watching, it was like a king reclaiming his throne after quelling rebellion. A man leaned toward his wife, whispering in awe, "Who is he? To make a regional director come in person?" The question lingered, but everyone sensed the answer would shake them even more than what they had just seen. Gregory Shaw, still clutching his ticket for tomorrow, sat paralyzed. His pride had drained away, replaced by fear. Phones continued to record, and the cabin no longer felt like a chamber of oppression, but a stage where justice was finally revealed. In the golden light, Noah Sterling quietly typed on his laptop. On his face, no trace of humiliation remained, only cold composure. He knew this was not the end. This was merely the overture to a symphony of justice that would echo across the skies. The engines hummed steadily, yet in the first-class cabin, every sound seemed swallowed whole. Every eye was fixed on Noah Sterling, the man who had returned to seat 2A, escorted by the regional director. No one knew exactly who he was, but his icy composure held the cabin in silence, like a courtroom awaiting judgment. Gregory Shaw sat nearby, his face drained of color, trembling hands clutching a ticket for the wrong day. He had once believed his privilege untouchable, now reduced to a farce before dozens of recording lenses. Victor Hale stood beside him, eyes cold as they swept across the crew. "Mr. Sterling," he said, his voice lowered with respect, "everything will be handled thoroughly. Would you like to address the passengers?" Noah lifted his head, warm golden light falling across his face. After a moment of silence, he closed his laptop and rose. His voice carried deep and steady, as though speaking not just to a few dozen people in the cabin, but to the world beyond, through the phones that recorded every word. "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce myself. I am Noah Sterling, Chief Executive Officer of Sterling Nexus Group, with a market value of nearly $19 billion. A wave of shock rolled through the cabin. Gasps, hushed cries. A passenger murmured, "Dear God, he's the CEO?" Noah paused, letting the whispers ripple. Then his tone sharpened. "Today I sat in seat 2A with a valid ticket. But as you all witnessed, what mattered was not the ticket. It was my skin color. Everything has been recorded, and this is not just my problem. This is a question for the system itself. Do we measure people by regulations or by prejudice?" The air grew dense. Those filming raised their phones closer, knowing they were capturing a moment that would serve as evidence, perhaps even history. Noah turned to Maya Turner, his voice lowered but still clear enough for all to hear. "Miss Turner, order cannot be built on injustice. I sat still with a valid ticket. Yet the system you trust labeled me a disturbance. That is not the law. It is bias." Maya gave no reply, her face rigid, fingers clutching her uniform cap. Noah addressed the cabin as a whole, his voice now resonant, like a speaker on a grand stage. "Power, status, wealth. None of it protects you if the system chooses to disregard your humanity. I sit here as a passenger, but the truth is, any one of you could face the same. The issue is not seat 2A. The issue is how we allow an organization to act when it believes no one will resist." Applause broke out, hesitant at first, then swelling. An elderly woman leaned toward a camera and whispered, "He's speaking for all of us." Gregory trembled as he leapt to his feet. You're just performing. You want help for your company." Noah turned, a thin, mocking smile flickering. "PR? Mr. Shaw, you just tried to force the CEO of a corporation out of his seat with a ticket for the wrong day. What do you think this video will show the world? That privilege can replace the law." Gregory's mouth hung open, his eyes dropping to the floor. A few passengers let out derisive chuckles, not at Noah, but at the collapse of a man who once flaunted power. Victor Hale inhaled deeply, his face grave. He knew this could not be buried. Millions of views were already waiting on social media. He turned to the crew. All those involved will be terminated immediately. From this moment, Apex Air will implement anti-bias training. I will report directly to the board. Applause thundered again, now like a storm reverberating through first class. The looks cast at Noah were not only admiration, but relief, as though justice had finally taken its rightful seat. Noah sat back down in 2A, opened his laptop, the glow illuminating his composed face. The gesture seemed ordinary, but to all who watched, it was like a monarch reclaiming his throne. He spoke softly, yet clear enough for those nearby. Justice is not a slogan. Justice is action, even on an airplane seat. Maya lowered her head and left the cabin quietly. Gregory gathered his things, avoiding the contemptuous stares around him. The cabin settled into silence. There was no laughter now, only a new conviction planted firmly. The truth can be defended, even when it begins with a single, contested seat. Flight 762 finally took off, but no one in the first-class cabin could return to normal. Phones continued recording from behind seats. Passengers kept stealing glances at Noah Sterling, the man sitting calmly in seat 2A, as though nothing had happened. But the real storm began on the ground. Just minutes after the cabin doors closed, a 2-minute and 47-second video was uploaded to Twitter. A young passenger from row 3 had written a simple caption: "Black CEO dragged from first class because a white preferred guest demanded his seat. Watch what happened next." The video exploded. Within an hour, it had over 2 million views. Hashtags #WhoOwns, Seat 2A, #Apex Justice, and #Sterling vs Apex spread like wildfire across dry brush. Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok flooded with the clip. Every share was like a drumbeat pounding against the airline's reputation. A pinned comment on Twitter read, "I went through the exact same thing, but no one believed me. Thank you, Noah Sterling, for not staying silent." Waves of support surged, though skepticism surfaced as well. He's just using the scandal to PR his company. Yet the outrage was too overwhelming. The images of Gregory mocking, Maya's cold demeanor, contrasted against Noah's composure and razor-sharp words, created a story that needed no embellishment. By morning, major newspapers carried the headlines. The New York Times, "When skin color outweighs a plane ticket, the Apex Air 762 incident." Forbes, "Noah Sterling, from victim of discrimination to corporate justice icon." CNN opened with the video and closed with the question, "The issue is no longer who was right or wrong. The question is, how much longer before corporations end their entrenched prejudice?" On the markets, Apex Air's stock plunged. In a single session, it lost 12% of its value, wiping out billions of dollars. Red charts bled across trading floors on Wall Street. Investors whispered only 2 words: Seat 2A. In a modest apartment in Detroit, Ruth Sterling turned on her small TV. Her hands trembled, eyes locked on the image of her son on the screen. The silver-haired woman wiped away tears, torn between pride and pain. "My son," she whispered. "The boy who once studied under a flickering lamp now stands before the world, turning humiliation into strength." In university classrooms, the clip was shared in law and business lectures. A student raised his hand and declared, "This is no longer law in textbooks. This is living law, rewritten by the actions of one man." At Sterling Nexus Group headquarters, employees crowded around a giant screen. They were both outraged and proud. A young assistant blurted out, "The boss didn't just defend his seat, he just launched a battle to change the entire industry." Yet resistance stirred elsewhere. On conservative forums, mocking posts appeared. If he really wants equality, why flaunt being a billionaire? Some extremist blogs labeled it a pure stunt by the rich. Noah read it all. He wasn't angry. He understood every revolution has its detractors. What mattered was that the majority now saw the truth. His phone buzzed. On the line was Victor Hale, his voice urgent, but weighted with gravity. "Mr. Sterling, the board wants to see you. They're proposing to invite you as an advisor for the reform program, even an honorary seat on the leadership council. They need you immediately." Noah closed his eyes briefly, drawing a deep breath. In his mind, replayed the image of Gregory shouting, Maya's cold voice, the security officer's hand gripping his arm, the judgmental stares in the cabin. All that humiliation had now become power. He answered slowly, "Mr. Hale, I don't need honor. I need commitment. If Apex wants to survive, prove that fairness is not just a slogan, but a matter of life and death policy." Victor went silent for a moment, then replied softly, "Message received. I'll deliver it verbatim." Noah hung up and turned toward the window. The city of San Francisco was coming into view beneath the plane's wings. The $500 million contract still awaited his signature. But now, he knew he was holding a contract far larger, a covenant between justice and society. The whole world was watching, and Seat 2A had become a symbol. 3 days after the incident on Flight 762, the Apex Air headquarters in Manhattan had turned into a battlefield. Revolving glass doors spun non-stop as reporters poured in, cameras flashing wildly. Outside, hundreds of protesters held signs high. "Fairness is not a privilege. We all deserve our seat 2A." On the 40th floor, the boardroom was thick with the smell of strong coffee and anxiety. On a giant screen, a blood-red chart showed an 18% stock drop in just 5 days. More than $4.3 billion in market value had evaporated. The chairman sighed, his voice hoarse. "We no longer have a choice. Either admit our mistake and reform, or wait for collapse." The name Noah Sterling rang again and again, like a bell toll that could not be silenced. A board member snapped, "We don't just need him to calm the public, we need him to redefine Apex itself." In a private conference room in San Francisco, Noah sat across from 7 senior executives of Apex. The air was heavy, their faces weary, their eyes a mix of pleading and unease. Victor Hale spoke first. "Mr. Sterling, the board invites you to serve as senior advisor for the reform program. As for compensation, you may name them your price." Noah folded his arms, his eyes sharp, his voice low yet cutting like a blade. "You don't understand. This isn't about compensation. This is about survival. If Apex doesn't change at the root, you will lose the market, lose trust, and ultimately lose everything. The issue isn't me, it's the millions of customers out there. He placed a thick dossier on the table, its cover bold with the words, Diversity and Equity Compliance. Blueprint. This is my proposal, Noah continued, a bias training program for all staff, from flight attendants to managers. An internal monitoring system to ensure every decision is driven by data, not prejudice. And an independent committee of civil rights experts with full authority to oversee implementation. The room was so silent one could hear the breathing. A middle-aged executive exhaled deeply, nodding. We agree. 1 month later, Apex Air announced its new program called Seat for All. In the promotional video, Noah appeared. His voice rang out, deep and solid as steel. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, or what you look like. A valid ticket is an undeniable right, and we will ensure that right is honored. Hundreds of employees lined up at the hall for the first training session. Unexpectedly, among the rows appeared a familiar face. Maya Turner. No uniform, no flight attendant's cap. Just a woman sitting quietly, eyes red and swollen. When reporters asked why she came, she answered softly, "Because I was wrong, and I want to start over." The news spread like wildfire. The media erupted instantly. Some articles called it the fairest punishment of all, forcing the very person who erred to relearn from the beginning. 6 months later, an independent report was released. 95% of Apex Air passengers affirmed that service had become fairer and more respectful than ever before. The pressure forced other airlines to follow suit. Delta, United, even Emirates all issued new internal policies, desperate to avoid the label of being left behind. On Bloomberg, an analyst remarked, "In the past, airlines measured success by quarterly profits. Now they are forced to measure by passenger trust. People call it the Sterling effect." From his office in San Francisco, Noah stood at the window, watching the sunset paint the city in red. The sunlight reflected across his face, not pride, but a quiet resolve. Lena Park, now deputy CEO of Sterling Nexus, entered with a report in hand. "Sir, the $500 million deal is signed, but everyone is only talking about Apex. You've become a social symbol." Noah gave a faint smile. He had never sought such a title. But he knew there are moments in history that leave no room for choice. They pull you into the storm and force you to stand firm. He set the report down, his gaze drifting far away. In his mind, he still saw his mother in their old apartment, writing shaky words on scraps of paper. "Study as if you are the last light in this house." Now that light no longer shone only in a Detroit apartment. It was illuminating an entire industry, and beyond that, society itself. 1 year after the fateful Flight 762, the sky over New York was an unusual shade of clear blue, as if no storm had ever passed. But for millions of people, Seat 2A was no longer just an ordinary seat. It had become a symbol. Apex Air unveiled its annual report, and the numbers stunned many. Revenue up 14%, customer satisfaction reaching 97%, the highest in the company's history. The report opened with a video projected on a massive screen, showing Noah Sterling sitting upright in Seat 2A, his voice resonating. Fairness is not a slogan. It is the foundation of trust, and trust is the true fuel that lifts an airline. Live on television, the chairman of the board admitted before the public, "We were wrong." But from that mistake, we learned how to be right. Everywhere, passengers whispered when they sat in 2A, "This is not just a seat. This is a legacy." A businesswoman posted on Twitter, "My first flight with Apex since the incident. The attendant called me by name, treated me the same as everyone else." That feeling, it isn't about the class of the ticket, it's about being seen as a human being. In universities, Case 2A became a classic lesson. Business students analyzed it as a brand strategy. Law students dissected Section 41712 as living proof, and professors called it an ethical revolution in service. The press named it the 2A revolution. A famous blogger wrote, "A man was dragged from his rightful seat, but with truth and intellect alone, he changed an entire industry." That is not just justice. That is legacy. The impact spread beyond aviation. In banking, customers began demanding transparency and fairness, citing the 2A principle in complaints. Hotels adopted public pledges of no discrimination by skin color or origin, displayed under the banner #Seat for All. Even hospitals were pressured to improve patient treatment after a viral campaign declared, "If on a plane seat 2A is respected, then in a hospital, so should the bed." The #Seat for All crossed borders, becoming a global emblem of fairness in service. In his San Francisco penthouse, Noah Sterling sat quietly before the glass window, gazing at the bay, glowing crimson at dusk. The sunset reflected on his face, half in light, half in shadow, mirroring the journey he had walked. From a boy wiping glass, to a CEO dragged from a seat, to the symbol of a movement. Lena Park, now Deputy CEO of Sterling Nexus, entered and placed a fresh report on the table. "Apex just sent an official thank you. And, did you know? Someone has already written a book called The Sterling Legacy." Noah raised an eyebrow, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Legacy doesn't live in books. It lives in the way people are treated every single day. If today an ordinary passenger can sit peacefully in the seat they paid for, that is the legacy. He stood, putting on his coat. Lena asked, "Where are you going?" Noah replied softly, his gaze distant. "Back to Detroit. I need to see my mother." The old apartment where Ruth Sterling still lived had changed little. The walls still cracked, the pipes still leaking. But the lamp above the kitchen table still glowed, just as it had when she wrote notes to her son long ago. The door swung open. Ruth embraced Noah tightly, her hair white and trembling. She looked at her son with eyes both proud and anxious. "You've gone so far, Noah. But are you happy?" Noah sat down, holding her frail hand. "Mother, I don't find happiness in money or fame. I find it in moments of fairness, when a poor child receives a scholarship, when a passenger is called by name, when a black traveler is not dragged from the seat they paid for. That is my happiness." Ruth's eyes welled with tears. She nodded, whispering, "My son, at last you've lit up the world." A week later, Noah appeared at the World Economic Forum in Geneva. Before thousands of leaders and scholars, He ended his keynote speech with words that made the entire hall rise to its feet in thunderous applause. True power does not lie in the number of shares you own, nor in the chair you sit on in the boardroom. It lies in ensuring that anyone who holds a ticket has the right to sit in their rightful seat. If we cannot do that, we do not deserve to call ourselves leaders. The applause roared, echoing without end. From that moment, Noah Sterling was no longer just a CEO. He was the symbol of transformation, of turning humiliation into strength, of turning a single seat into a global movement. And on every Apex Air flight, when a passenger sat down in seat 2A, they often whispered one line: "This is not just a seat. This is a legacy." A year had passed since Flight 762 was shaken by the battle for seat 2A. In the skies, Apex airplanes still took off and landed as usual. But for passengers, the experience was no longer the same. When flight attendants bent down to address them by name, when eyes no longer carried suspicion but only respect, everyone knew that one seat had rewritten the unspoken rules of the entire industry. Seat 2A. Apex Air presented its annual report before the international press. The numbers were impressive: revenue up 14%, customer satisfaction at 97%. But what made the entire hall rise to its feet in applause was not the profit charts, it was the opening video. In soft lighting, Noah Sterling sat upright in seat 2A, his voice deep and resolute. Fairness is not a slogan. Fairness is the foundation of trust, and trust is the true fuel that lifts an airline. On the screen, the Apex Air logo appeared with the words, "We were wrong, but we chose to be right." No one had expected an airline once on the brink of collapse to transform itself through its most catastrophic mistake. But it was true. From media disaster, Apex was reborn, and people called that turning point the Sterling effect. Beyond aviation, the movement Hamper Seat for All had become a global call. Banks launched transparent customer policies to prevent discrimination. Hotels announced public commitments to treat guests fairly regardless of background or skin color. Even hospitals were forced to improve service after a viral campaign declared, "If seat 2A is respected on a plane, then so must the hospital bed." The legacy of 2A had grown beyond an airline. It had become a social standard. In the Sterling Nexus office in San Francisco, Noah stood by the window, gazing at the bay bathed in the red hues of dusk. Lena Park, now deputy CEO, walked in with a report. "Mr. Sterling," she smiled, "Apex just sent a message of thanks. And did you know a publisher has just released a book called The Sterling Legacy?" Noah chuckled softly, his gaze distant. Legacy doesn't live in books. Legacy lives in the way people are treated every single day. If today, an ordinary passenger can sit undisturbed in the seat they paid for, that is a legacy. He put on his coat, preparing to leave. Lena asked, "Where are you going?" Noah replied, gently but firmly, "To Detroit. I need to see my mother." The old apartment still bore cracked walls and dripping pipes. Ruth Sterling opened the door, wrapping her arms around her son. She looked at Noah, tears in her eyes, both proud and worried. "You've gone so far, Noah. But are you happy?" Noah held her frail hand and answered softly, "Mother, My happiness is not in wealth or power. It lies in moments of fairness, when a poor child receives a scholarship, when a patient is called by name, when a black passenger is not forced out of the seat they rightfully paid for. That is my happiness." Ruth broke into tears, whispering, "My son, at last, you have lit up the world." A week later, at the World Economic Forum in Geneva, Noah took the stage. Before thousands of leaders and scholars under the blazing lights, he ended his speech with words that brought the entire hall to its feet in thunderous applause. "True power does not lie in the number of shares you hold, nor in the chair you sit in within the boardroom. It lies in ensuring that anyone who buys a ticket has the right to sit in their rightful seat. If we cannot do that, we do not deserve to call ourselves leaders." The ovation thundered on, unending. From that moment, Noah Sterling was no longer just a CEO. He had become the symbol of transforming humiliation into strength, of turning a seat into a global movement. And every time an Apex airplane took off again, when passengers sat down in seat 2A, they often whispered, "This is not just a seat. This is a legacy." The legacy of a man who once wiped store windows in the freezing Detroit winter, now leaving the world with a lesson. Fairness can become the standard if we are steadfast enough to defend it. Seat 2A, once just a small seat on a flight, has become a global symbol of fairness. Noah Sterling proved that justice is not found in slogans, but in action. True strength is not in wealth or status, but in the courage to stand up for the basic right of every human being, the right to be treated fairly. If this story touched you, press like to spread the message. Subscribe so you won't miss the journeys ahead, where together we will witness moments of justice being illuminated. And before you leave, comment with the words "Seat Fair" to affirm that you too believe in a world where everyone, no matter who they are, deserves to sit in the seat they rightfully paid for. Because in the end, the world is not measured by the privileged seats reserved for a few, but by how we protect the seats that belong to all.